And hello, once again, this is Ted Hicks from Late Night Parents. Sitting across from me is Rich Valdez. Rich, how you doing?
I'm good, Ted. What's going on?
Nothing much. Well, nothing much in everything. Controlling the boards tonight is Brian Graves.
Super producer Brian. He's out there.
Yes, he is. And we want to give a shout out to 1240 AM 1240 WGBB and WRAQ 92.7 FM. So, Rich, I rolled solo last week.
Yes, you did.
Kind of hybrid show. I know you were enjoying your graduation barbecue part 7.
This was for a neighbor of ours, a young lady who's we've known since before she was born, actually.
Oh, okay.
And always close friends with the family, always have been. And it's always nice to see the young ones in the neighborhood, the little ones grow up,
yes,
graduating, moving on, doing big things. So again, congratulations, Gabby Cornera. You made us all proud.
That's good. That's good. It's always good to see. I will tell you this much about maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, as I was parking the car, a young gentleman who lives across the street from me, a grandson.
Ah, okay.
Of the Berry Hills, came across and stood outside my car, and I came out and said, "Hey, Moses, the young man named Moses." I said, "Moses, how are you doing?" And he was like, "Hey, Mr. Ted, how you doing? I just want to let you know I'm heading off to college." And I'm
nice.
like, "Huh?" Because
how did you get that old?
How did you get that old that quick? Yeah. And it kind of makes you feel older.
Yeah, it does. But I mean, granted now mine are at the tail end of that journey. So, been through it, yes, like you hinted initially, many, many times now.
Right.
But you're just getting there. Your oldest is just she's approaching that age.
Yeah, she'll be 17 coming up this Christmas.
Wow.
So we're getting there. We're getting there. And we are both getting up there.
Yep.
So before we even get started, a topic that's been on my mind for the longest time.
What has been on your mind, Ted?
The absolute longest time is, drum roll please, Desus and Mero, The Gap. There's a gap out there because Desus and Mero, their show is no longer on Vice TV.
Right. And that was a good show. I enjoyed the show. I mean, it was a little rough.
It was extremely rough.
I was being nice.
Extremely rough, but I think great for late night.
It was. I thought so.
So there's a gap.
They still haven't filled that spot.
They still haven't filled the spot. They are moving transitioning to Showtime.
Right.
So they go from 4 times a week to once a week.
Wow.
Big transition, but you go into Showtime.
Exposure.
Premium channel.
And I'm guessing you're thinking that maybe you may know someone eligible to fill that gap.
I definitely do know someone. But so if you wanted an older, more polished version of Desus,
a little more polished,
and a little bit older,
Yeah, but we could do that. I think it's once a week. Come on, we could talk about anything for once a week.
Oh, come on.
We can just roll with it and not be censored.
They used to go 4 times a week for a true 30 minutes.
I didn't know they were 4 times a week.
They were 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday. 30 minutes. And I'm thinking if they were on that channel, is it a true 30 minutes or is it really 21 minutes? Is it maybe 25 minutes?
Yeah, they're probably like a 24, 26.
Right,
yeah.
Right. So you do the math, that's 2 shows a week.
Right.
2 full-length shows.
2 full-length shows.
So could we then switch our show to 2 instead of 1 hour per week to 2 hours per week?
We could probably do that.
I think it might be a stretch. Well,
see, we'd also have more of a team.
Right.
Yeah, all we need is someone to fill us the information.
That's it.
Feed us the topics. We're gonna roll with it. We're done.
And go. But I've been meaning to mention that to you. Wanted to start off the show much lighter. So we're 1 year in, Rich, from Charlottesville.
It doesn't even seem like it's been a year.
This stuff flies right by.
Yeah.
I mean, do you remember the outrage a year ago?
It was all well-deserved outrage. I mean, you remember watching these I don't want to call it parades, these exhibitions going on, both sides screaming and yelling at each other, and that's fine. I'm okay with screaming and yelling at each other. People can vent. But once you have some idiot come through with a vehicle and run over people, that's, obviously way over the top. And yeah, I think maybe, you hope at least, that brought on some more awareness to the country, to those people who were out there who were in some sort of denial, saying, "Oh, things aren't that bad. These things aren't really happening out there." Well, yeah, this was there. This was right in their face. This was on live TV, and we see what happens. So you have to hope that the country's in a different place now. I don't know. What do you think?
I guess I'm a pessimist, or I have pessimistic views. I don't think the country is in a better place than we were a year ago. I don't think we've moved forward.
I would agree.
I think the vitriol is still out there.
I'm going to cut you off just a bit second. I don't think the vitriol was ever gone. I think it was just muted. People still feel the way they've always felt before 2016. They just feel emboldened and enabled to voice their opinions. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I think they got a hallway pass.
Yeah, well, yeah. Now it's like, okay, we can say whatever we want to. We can say what we've always wanted to say. That's what I think the difference is. I was
speaking with someone earlier, and one of my good friends, and his wife is Panamanian.
Okay.
So, and I tell you this because of, we were talking about when our president was a candidate.
Right.
And we were talking about right out of the gate was spewing whatever. And it hit the nation.
Right.
Hit the nation. And you heard a lot of people, and I don't want to say everyone, I don't want to classify this as everyone,
right.
But you heard a lot of people say, he says the things I want to say. He says the things I think.
There you go.
So that went on. We know how the story ended.
Right.
In 2016. But I mean, as a nation, I mean, are white nationalist events still happening?
Of course.
Are they protected by freedom of speech?
Yes, they are.
So, do they still go out and get permits to go have these events?
Yes, they do.
And is it covered by the media on a national scale?
Some of them are, it seems, yes, obviously, because that drums up the quote-unquote news. Yeah.
Drums up the news. The narrative of these reporters of what they're going to cover or what they want to cover. I mean, it's never good. It's never good because, well, it's never good when something is being covered that you don't believe in.
Correct.
We'll put it that way because we come from a different angle because we're like, nah, I don't agree with that.
Don't need to see that, right?
I don't need to see that. That doesn't need to be plastered across cable news, but it is.
Right.
It is, and on some networks, it's accepted.
Well, and I think you just tapped on what I was about to say. I think what we're seeing when all that gets televised and publicized, we like to think that it's the minority getting the news, the minority getting the big window, the squeaky wheel, getting the oil or whatever it is. That's what we'd like to think, that, all this is happening, but it's just a minority, but they're getting the publicity. When, it's probably not I still believe it's a minority. I don't believe the majority of Americans feel this way or feel that way. But it may not be as much of a minority as some would like to believe.
How much of this is the news being reported versus some of the cable channels hunting down ratings?
Good question.
So that this stuff is sensationalized and they're like, hey, we can get the bigger pop, whether it's on the cable news or really more focused on the web so they can get the clicks.
Right. You're probably onto something there. I mean, let's face it. Now it is clicks that drives media. It's clicks that drives money because that's how they know they're getting the attention. They're getting the viewership, listenership, whatever ship, and that's where advertising dollars come from.
Right.
So yeah, of course they're going to put on whatever is going to be the most sensationalist to get the clicks, to get the news, to get people to watch, listen, read, whatever it may be. So yeah, you're probably onto something there too.
I just believe this is the day and age when journalists have to do the digging. They have to do the adequate amount of research when discussing this type of topic. And I mean, we know from scratching the surface, we're bloggers, we're not journalists.
Right.
We've stated that for years.
Right.
Okay? So I would expect with the journalist craft, where they're going to dig a little bit deeper to find out, okay, here's the sound bite.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we're talking about. I guess I'm looking from the journalists for more into the story, surrounding the impact, surrounding that person's upbringing.
The full background.
Right.
Well, I think maybe then you go to are those who are on the front lines in the media these days, who we're reading on Facebook, who are reading on Twitter, who, are they journalists as you're naming them? Or is it that the real journalists, those who do all the investigative reporting, those who dig deep, those who don't just go for the soundbite, are they fewer and far between, or are their contributions not even making it to the front lines, and you have to go deeper or look for, I don't want to say alternate news sources, but maybe not even so much the immediate mainstream news sources, or some of the sources that used to be the prime ones, or maybe you got to go back to some of those old classics. You got to look at the Time magazines, the Wall Street journals,
right?
The tried and true old staid publications. Because I think it's still safe to say that if you see something there, it has been investigated. It's, I don't want to say more legitimate, but it's more thorough investigative reporting.
Yeah, I just think this part of the conversation is morphed into old media versus new media.
Yeah, could be. Yeah.
I mean, I just think nowadays, and not to rip any current journalists.
Of course not.
But the way things are reported now is, hey, I can get this message out. I can drop it on whatever social channel.
And all my followers.
Boom.
Right.
Here, and then it's shared 200, 1,500,
yep.
30 million times.
Yep.
And then it's out there.
Right. And then you find out later on there may be some misstatement in there, but it's too late.
Right.
Too late then.
And that's the part of the lazy journalism
right.
that we've seen. Too many times. But just getting back to the crux of the conversation, I don't think we're better off. Mm-hmm. I think this hate still exists. It still festers.
Yep, sure.
I mean, are people getting called out? Yeah, people are getting called out. Is our president calling people out? Is it his job to call people out? Well, previous presidents, it was their job to call it out, but everything's out of whack with this president.
Mm-hmm.
And the sad thing is, everything is normalized now, because when
right.
he doesn't do something, you're just like, didn't expect it.
Right. Not surprised.
Not surprised. So when you see a message on Twitter that says, "Oh, I'm denouncing all hate,"
right? You're like, what does that even mean?
Right. I'm denouncing all hate from everyone.
Right.
Peace to the people. You kind of like it. Kind of reminds you of there's bad people on many sides.
Of course. But you have to always remember that's the case, that there's
right.
bad people on any side. But I think to your point, when he says something like that, it seems disingenuous.
It does.
Like, you almost know that the publicist said, "All right, you have to say this out. You have to put this out there, just
right.
to say it."
Right.
His cue card. It's not his honest rantings and ravings that we can see any morning.
Even though you don't believe it, put it out there.
Right.
And
right.
I mean, so many times we've seen this gentleman go off script And when he the
When
script
he goes off script,
that's it.
Here it comes.
It's like kaboom.
Yep.
In talking about white nationalists and talking about far right, I think it was last week or the week before, Alex Jones from InfoWars was silenced. He's censored.
Almost everywhere.
Almost everywhere. So, Rich, when Apple, Facebook, Google /YouTube shut you down, and shut your pages down,
Spotify,
and Twitter doesn't, because Twitter says he didn't violate our confidentiality or terms of agreements. But then they backtracked and said, well, he did, but that was before we announced our terms of agreement.
Yeah, but once they put new terms of service out, then you have to abide by them. So I don't see where that really should make a difference.
So with GDPR, remember GDPR was a hot thing?
A month ago?
And
everyone's data, that's right, you got to secure it.
And every site that you would go to or you've registered for was sending you their
upgraded privacy service information. Sure.
Question number one is, what's your thoughts on him being censored, and what's your take on Twitter not following forward?
Him being censored, censorship. I am no censorship specialty. We know people who are. I am not one. So this is all my personal opinion. I think he needed to be. I mean, let's face it. When you're pretty much caught out there making incorrect, biased, inflammatory statements on a regular basis, that has to be controlled. Just like you can't yell fire in a movie theater.
Correct.
Free speech has its limits. But I'm on the fence with Twitter, only because even though yes he's still saying what he wants to say, it's more a direct statement versus putting it out in a publication broadcast type format. It's anyone can still say what they want to say. Now, granted, if he's put he put links on Twitter going back to the InfoWars websites and things like that, you got to shut that down because that is what it is. But if he's saying these things, the person can say what they want to say and believe what they want to believe. So that's why I'm just a little on the fence there. It's less of a publication, less of a broadcast with Twitter. That's how I see it.
Okay. I think we had a discussion. I got to tell you, Vice TV, if you're listening, we know you are. I did reach out to them.
You did?
I did.
Oh, okay.
I did. I reached out to them to say, hey, I know you guys need 2 African Americans.
That's us.
Like I said, slightly older,
yep.
Slightly more polished. We'll take the engineer along with the show.
Absolutely. Super producer engineer Brian comes with us.
Okay. So what I was going to say to you about Jones and InfoWars and with Twitter and everything else like that, a few weeks ago we broached the topic, does Facebook have an InfoWars problem? I'm not sure if you remember.
I remember.
Yes. We always have our ear to the ground.
Called it.
Called it.
Oh, no. They heard us and said, you know what? Those guys are right.
They're right. This is what we're going to do. We're going to move forward with this.
Yep. We need to do this.
And everyone else was like, what are they talking about? Okay.
You called it.
So, question is, what position does this place Facebook, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify in? Because now their feet are held to the fire. Because they've already, hey, we set precedents right here.
I think, let's see, we'll call it, they've taken an editorial stance.
Okay, so it's no longer just an open platform.
This sets precedents, I would think. So now, the first test is going to be, well, let's face it, this was all based on right-wing propaganda. Let's see what happens if some equally left-wing propaganda, as I'm going to call it, to label them both the same, comes out. They have to take the same stance. Because, again, to be editorial, you cannot be biased. You have to be independent. You are just looking at information. And if you verify something is incorrect or someone is spewing hate, filth, whatever the case may be, you have to be equal on both sides. Now, maybe there'll be no need for it. I'm not saying that there is, but if something comes up, we have to see what they do.
So who on the left?
Who on the left?
Yeah, I can. So who on the left could we consider to be in that segment?
Oh,
I really don't know. I mean, because they're quick to call out, the Democratic Socialists.
yes.
But
to that extreme, that's why I said I'm not saying that there is anyone.
right.
I, off the top of my head, really couldn't even put a name on it.
But just tell me this much. Okay, so for someone to be censored, they have to be an Alex Jones type persona.
It can't be based on persona. It's got to be based on what's said. It's got to be information. It's not the person. The person can be as wild as they want to be, and they can choose whether or not they want to put the person on. But
in your mind,
it is what's said.
In your mind, is he like an actor?
You hope. But some of these people believe these things.
Right.
So I'm gonna say probably not.
Okay.
But you hope, because when no matter what, when it comes down to it, it's about the dollar as well.
That's true.
So he realized, you want to think at least, that at some point he realized, yep, I can, I have these beliefs, but I can make money putting all my beliefs out there and on the fringe and coming up with all kinds of crazy, ridiculous theories, which even they back down on, once it comes out that they have to pull back.
I'm just stuck on the fact that now they will have to monitor.
Right.
Now
well, they have to monitor, or are they going to wait for people to complain?
Probably the latter.
I would think so.
Probably the latter. Because I think monitoring, you can't monitor.
Then you're censoring.
Yes.
Then it's, or you could, they have the algorithms and everything's being monitored, via computer and via person. But yeah, it's going to come down to a certain point where X amount of people or X group or whatever complain, and you still have to be able to find something illegitimate about what has been said. Because if someone says something and it's true, well, you may not like it, but it's true. That doesn't make it something that needs to be edited. But if you start spewing things that are false and getting people to believe them, and they're inflammatory, that's got to be a piece of it too. Then I would believe they can look at editorial.
This is Late Night Parents, Rich and Ted. Ways to follow the shows, latenightparent.com. You can listen to the latest podcast. You can follow the Twitter, Facebook feeds, and read your latest blogs. So, you might have answered this. Why did Twitter go the opposite direction? Or why didn't they act in the way that
everyone else did? The
other mainstream social channels did.
Good question.
You speak with Jack Dorsey, and he's like, it was kind of a half of an answer that he didn't violate the terms, but he did. But when he did,
it was after it was stated. So what do? You wait for him to violate again, and which I guess that's how things would go, right? If you violate, if you when you make a statement, it's not a violation of a term of service, right? And then it becomes later on a violation. You can't act on what was done before. But if the person, you make that act again now that the new terms are enabled, then sure you can act. So is this just a case of, well, we had to wait for him, we're waiting for him to do something which violates it now?
I don't know.
If they didn't make it, if it wasn't a violation before, you can't say, well, you did this last 5 years ago,
right? And
it was okay then, but now it's not. We can maybe pull it.
I agree with that stance.
I'm
It sounds a little too wishy-washy for me.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we wanted to, however, we're not going to do it quite yet.
So this is probably not the best of analogies.
Okay.
But let's just say on Hempstead Turnpike,
mm-hmm.
the speed limit is 40 miles an hour. 5 years ago, the speed limit was 40 miles an hour.
Okay.
You could go 40 miles an hour all the time, no matter what, as much as you wanted.
Okay.
This month, they lowered it to 30 miles an hour.
Hmm.
Can we hold you accountable for going 40 miles an hour 5 years ago?
No.
Terms of service.
Okay. Okay.
That's how I think the argument that they would put forth. And I just came off that off the top of my head with that.
I guess I can roll with that. You know, I kind of associate it with Major League Baseball.
Okay. All right. Major League Baseball.
Major League Baseball. The old terms were, if you're caught with a performance-enhancing drug in your system, first infraction was, 10 games, 20 games, and then second,
go ahead.
But then the new rules, as they go forward with, I don't know, June 1st or July 1st, is now 80 games.
So, but see, that's a case.
But you were tested before that June 1st or that specific date. Are you penalized for the previous rules or the existing
rules?
Or the new rules? I don't know. It's just hearsay.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. I'd say you can't penalize them. You can't penalize them on the new rules because the infraction happened under the old rules.
Right.
But it goes by to take that a different lane. A certain drug last year was not on the list.
Right.
And you tested and everything was fine.
Okay.
This year that drug gets put on the list. And you test and it's no longer there. But it was there last time. Can't hold them accountable.
So Robinson Cano, second baseman.
Yes.
Used to play for the Yankees.
Yes.
Decided to leave the Yankees when they didn't make him the contract offer that he wanted to receive.
Okay.
He then signs with Jay-Z.
Yes.
And Rock Nation Sports or Live Nation Sports, whatever. Then signs a contract with the Seattle Mariners for 10 years, $240 million.
I'll take it.
Okay, you and I will both take it. Okay. So I say this. The Yankees did not offer him the contract because there was whispers
that he was going to do something.
That he was, that he was in that PED crowd.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Rumors.
Okay.
Rumors that he was taking. Okay.
Rumors. Well, the group that he was hanging with, a few people were busted.
Right. Okay.
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 Melky Cabrera, Alex Rodriguez, and a few others. Okay. Fast forward 6 years later.
Right.
Okay. He's 6 years into this $240 million contract.
Right.
He gets busted for a drug that kind of mass use.
Okay. But it's on the list.
Yes, it was just added to the list.
Okay.
It masked the use
of other drugs.
Right.
Okay.
So per se, it's not a steroid.
Right.
But
it hides the fact that you were taking steroids.
It hides that fact.
Right. Okay. I'm with you.
And he's suspended for 80 games.
Okay. Because there's the difference there is unless there is, and I'm, no doctor, unless there is some other reason, other legitimate reason that he could say, well, I was taking this drug for something completely different, which would be verifiable and all that, then no, because if it's something that you would only take to hide the fact you were taking something else, then no. Then sorry, you're caught, you're busted, and yeah, we're going to penalize you because we know what you were doing. You're trying to hide it.
So we take it back to the essence of this conversation of, so Rich, how much time do you think Alex Jones has left on Twitter? Because I'm counting the days for an infraction to happen.
As soon as he says something or something goes on any one of the InfoWars sites or it'll happen right away. This is probably the kind of thing I would think they're sitting there waiting because it's not like he's going to censor himself.
No, he's not.
He's not going to change what he says.
No, he's not.
So as soon as he says something out of line, they're going to be like, all right, clip, done.
Got him.
Snapchat.
Snapchat. Yes. I definitely think that.
Yeah. And that's fair. That's how it should be. He didn't do it before, but for the rules, here's the new rules. Got to abide by the new rules. As soon as you break the new rules, done. I think that's fair.
I want to segue really quick. I think the Galaxy
Tab 9 or the S9?
S9 Note?
Yes, the S9 Note. That's what they're talking about coming out.
I know, the Android world you're heavily into, and partially also the Samsung world?
Samsung world.
Okay. So...
And I'm due for an upgrade.
Okay. When you heard that announcement this past week, were you like, or were you like, so-so? And a follow-up question to that is, did you pull it up, the specs online, or did you go into a store to see if you can put your hands on one?
No, the answer is no, I didn't do that yet.
Okay.
I mean, it looks like a fantastic device. All the the new features, the recognition, the speed, processor, everything looks great, but the notes are just a little too large for me for my day-to-day usage.
Okay.
I don't think it's an oversized device. It's just too large for me, fitting in my pocket, along with the other phone in the other pocket. And it's also my device for my GPS in my vehicle and all that. So the Note series, while fantastic devices, are just not the right format for me, form factor. But I am looking. I got to see how long my S6's battery continues to live.
Okay.
Because I was looking at the S9. That's a nice phone, but we're already getting closer to the end of life. If I can hold out for another few months, then we may be looking at next generation, 10 or whatever they decide to call it. But I was talking about phones and batteries, things like that. So, Galaxy, like I said, Galaxy S6, which is now well over 2 years old. I think it actually will be 3 years old in November. Recently, battery life was just drained. I wasn't even getting maybe like half the day from 100 to 0 by like 12 o'clock, and that's taking it off the charger at like 6:30. So, did what I tell people to do. You know what? Make sure you got a good backup of your phone. And I used my meme device. If you remember, we had that on the phone.
I do remember the meme.
I had the meme device back up my phone, all my contacts, all my info, everything good. Wiped the device. Just reinstalled the apps that I needed again, and lo and behold, battery life is over a day again. Or just at a day. When I plug it in at the end of the night before going to bed, it's under 10% usually, but that's okay. It's about to get plugged in again.
So you get a full day's use.
Get a full day's use out of the phone.
And that was from wiping your phone.
Wiping the phone, wiping all the apps out, and then reinstalling just the apps I needed, and of course looking at location services, things like that.
Okay.
I always tell people to do that also with the Apple devices. I've had the same experience with those. Wipe it, and it's amazing what happens when you just clear it out and let it. I think it's got a lot to do with it's installing the most recent OS first. It's no longer like an upgrade on an upgrade, just like what happens with a PC. If you're on a machine that is still the same hardware instead of everything that was Windows XP that you upgraded to Windows 7, that you upgraded to Windows 10, you've got all kinds of garbage that's just sitting there on the box that's doing nothing, just taking up space, taking up resources, slowing your machine down. So I have a feeling it's got the same effect on the phone as well, because that's about 4 different OS versions and updates along the way. So, notes, that's all.
I want to take a step to the side. I do want to go back to technology talk, but what we noticed was this past week, exhibition football started again.
Here we go. This is the Ted Hicks Sports segment.
It's only going to be a sports segment, a little bit of social justice,
okay,
included, because Aaron Rodgers.
Remember that name.
Aaron Rodgers, quarterback from the Green Bay Packers. Everyone loves Aaron Rodgers. He came out and made a comment on the protest.
I didn't hear about this. I missed this one.
Yes. Aaron Rodgers is not a black quarterback.
Nope.
He's not someone that's centered left or, you could say is a bleeding heart liberal. He said it was never, he talks about the protests. The anthem and everything else like that. He said it was never about the anthem. It was never about the troops. It's about social equality and racial injustice.
Thank you.
Why, oh why, oh why does it take so long for some of our mainstream non-black athletes to come out and state the fact?
That's a good question.
He's one of the faces of the league.
He is, and in some way he probably rightfully so. Again, especially considering, that the orange-headed one was so anti the protest. He's probably thinking, he could have some money losses involved. I mean, we've seen what happened. You don't want to be that guy either.
No, you don't want to be that guy either. But this guy's about to sign another
right
$200 million deal with probably full guarantees. I'm thinking he signs a $150 million deal. Of that 150, maybe 110 or 120 is guaranteed.
Right. Take it. I'll take that too.
Right. But it's for me, it's just good to see, you have more and more athletes that are coming out to say, hey, this guy who's in office who wants to talk about the NFL, shouldn't you be doing other things?
Right.
Shouldn't you be worried about other things?
About sports, for example. Just worry about the game, not the politics you're infusing into it. But then, along what you said, if I remember correctly, didn't I hear, and it was either Jets or Giants, someone in the head office basically made a very similar comment that we support our team in supporting the protests.
Yes, Chris Johnson, interim CEO of the team, because his brother Woody Johnson took a position in the Trump administration to be the UK ambassador.
Okay.
So he couldn't be UK ambassador and have control of the team. So he ceded ownership to his brother. First thing his brother said was, anyone who protests,
we're behind you.
We're behind you, and we're covering the fines.
Nice. See, but then New York.
Right.
Let's be real.
Right.
But but it's still he's a member of the big boys team. He's a member of the big boys club rather. So you also want to hope maybe you get a few more actually willing to come out and say what needs to be said and support their teammates, support their players, and not get caught up in the craziness. Recognize that they're on the wrong side. You hope.
So I'm not sure if you heard this week, Tribune, and that company that we were talking about 6 or 7 or 8 months ago, Sinclair Broadcasting Group, was slated to buy the Tribune network for just under $4 billion.
I think I remember seeing just something about the number saying, wow.
Yeah. Between the DOJ put a kibosh on the deal. So now Tribune is suing Sinclair for the merger, and it talked about why it's big was it's about local TV channels, retransmission of
always the problem
sports games, NFL and MLB and NBA, and it's big money in that. There's big money in that. Sinclair was on the verge of being, and they still can be, but they were on the verge of being, when it comes to local TV channels, the only game in
monopoly.
town.
Can't have that.
Boom. Shut down just like that. Right. Sinclair's going to be a big player, and now that we have that Fox, and they were purchased, the Fox entertainment piece was purchased by Disney. Those regional sports network channels, Sinclair's going to be, I guess, in the game to try to get that, because you got to think about it. These stations or these stations or teams have to pay money to transmit
right
on these specific local channels. So pretty big non-merger type deal. I think the administration is also going back on AT&T and its acquisition of Time Warner.
Time Warner, yeah.
So why won't they let it go? I think it's all about CNN.
Why?
Because our president doesn't like CNN.
You think that's really what it comes down to? No. I'm not saying you're not right.
No, I think a large part of it was that he wanted CNN let's put it this way. He wanted the Turner channel spun off.
Right.
Somewhere else.
Okay.
I kind of like wanted to change that narrative.
See what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Something else technology related. Did you hear what Elon Musk was? The tweet.
Great. I thought that was great.
I'm thinking about we might take it private. I want to privatize Tesla again.
I thought that was great.
Stock price, pew, straight up. Quotes the price of everything. Backtrack. Lawsuits now. There's a couple lawsuits out there. Looking in depth in what, if any, there were any investment plays on his behalf. Looking at also, I guess the tentative or alleged purchaser or assistant purchaser that would have helped with him was someone at Saudi Arabian interests. They're looking into their investments. This could turn into something really ugly.
It could, because the minute that tweet went out, I think they said per share $420.
Yep, and it was only at I think 380 or 360 at the time.
Yeah, it just shot up.
Now it's lost everything that it gained. Pretty much, it's lost back again.
Okay,
but that doesn't mean a thing. There are people who made millions just on that switch, going up and down. Because you can be sure someone said it's not going to hold that long.
No,
let's do that call option or put option, excuse me, and price down $40 a share difference.
Right.
Options on 50 million share. I mean, come on.
Nice thing. This is Late Night Parents. Ways to follow the show, latenightparents.com. And even for the super lazy folks, LMP.TV.
Ah, yes.
So, are you a Verizon Unlimited subscriber?
I am not.
Okay.
Verizon. For my wireless Verizon, I've got a cap on it, and my son continues to hit that cap. But I do the not family sharing. They've got family account management tools.
Okay.
So you can put quotas, on the individual lines.
Gotcha.
And really, even though it's three phones, my phone, because I have the other phone, is the least used.
Of course.
So if I use 250 megs a month, it's a lot. The wife and son, the other 8 gigs, they more him than her. They hit the wall all the time. So I'm at the point where it's like, all right, well, I'll give him half of it, and when he gets whenever he hits his half, he's done. But at least Verizon is good. He loses 4G, but he still gets to keep 3G.
Right.
So he's not dead in the water like he was like this time last year before they made that change.
Gotcha.
And it's like, all right, well, you wanted to sit there and browse whatever video all day long or wherever you might have been. Your data will be back on the 11th.
Wow. I mean, I think even for some of our unlimited users, I kind of think, when they do hit that wall, that 10 gigs or whatever.
Is that what it is when they throttle?
I think that's when they throttle. They push you down, and they never stop you, but they just put you in a different lane.
Yeah, yep. Does your video then get maxed to like 480 instead of 1080?
I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think so. But something came out, and that's why I was asking if you were an unlimited subscriber. They're offering free subscription, 6-month subscription to Apple Music.
That would be zero incentive for me.
Right.
Zero.
And I'm just wondering, what does that mean for, because when something is offered for free, now I can understand if the product had just dropped.
Right.
And you're incentivizing everyone to, hey, join us for 3 months, join us for this.
Build a subscriber base.
But I think they have at least 30 million subscribers, so I'm just kind of wondering why they would go that route. They're not doing it for the people.
No,
Apple doesn't do anything for the people.
Right.
Come on.
Let's be real.
They do nothing for the people. But I just wanted to know if you were looking into something like that, if you were...
I do need to start looking over the contract again.
Okay.
Because it's just too much money for the 3 phones, and I'm not paying unlimited.
Right.
So
you got to call them up, Rich.
I'm going to. And my goddaughter works at one of the competitors.
Oh, okay.
T-Mobile.
Oh, great.
So she's like, if you let me know what you want.
She'll bring you on, and T-Mobile will do everything that they
Yep.
want you to do.
Yep. But I'm kind of holding out. I figure I probably end up holding out for another year. I want to get all the phones paid off.
Gotcha.
So I can just say, all right.
Yeah, that's the key.
Can't have any money left on the table for them to come back and
can't.
snatch.
You can't.
So it's like, when these phones are paid off, yeah, somewhat. Verizon, you got to make a deal or I'm out.
So this past week, and so we're located Long Island,
Yep.
right? We work in New York City.
Yep.
Okay. So for most of the country that listens to the show, that doesn't live in the tri-state area, this won't affect you right now, but it's going to affect you somewhere in the future, because now, as we talked about, the foundation has been laid. And it's very important to have a strong foundation laid. Let's say when you're building a house, right?
Of course.
If
it has to be level.
If something is not built on solid ground, what happens?
It's going to teeter off.
Okay.
It's not going to be straight.
So the city of New York, they dealt a blow to Uber and Lyft drivers. I mean,
so regardless of what they said or what the deal is, because you hear about this, Uber was putting up ads, the city's coming down on us, we're making it harder for you guys out in the boroughs, blah, blah, blah. I don't care what the city did, it's wrong. There's no way they should have limited, and I don't know the details, so fill me in.
But how do you cap?
What are the details?
Well, the overall details, the 30,000 foot view is Uber and Lyft that have ride-sharing platforms.
Yep.
They rival your old
medallion.
School medallion,
right,
that you would be in the city trying to get a car service to get you to Penn Station. And I'm sorry, but people of color,
we've all had that incident.
We've all had that problem when you hail a car and they ask you where you going, and you're like, Penn Station, and they're like, but then they go across the street
and pick someone else up. Oh, I've had it when I was in a suit and tie and coat with a briefcase,
right,
on Fifth Avenue.
Raised.
The guy pulls up slowly, doesn't even get to ask me anything, just pulls off, and halfway down the block there's someone else standing there also waving her hand, blonde hair flowing, and and just gets in the cab. So yeah, I mean we've all had it happen. But so continue on. So how are they intending on limiting?
So the New York City Council passed a package of regulations targeting the ride-hailing apps, ultimately for new drivers, capping the fact that you had so many people. You got to think about it.
Also, what, they're trying to put a limit on the number of drivers?
Yes, on the number of drivers.
Are they capping it on what is in existence now? Are they saying that they have to lower the number?
I think it's all due to the medallion. I think it's all due to, the money that you have to pay up.
Well, I mean, sure. So I remember, and I don't know what it's worth now, but I know it's a lot less, when New York City yellow taxi cab medallion was getting near $1 million.
Right.
And what is it now? I believe something in the 300s or something like that, maybe even less, because, like you're saying, one, it's convenience. Let's face it. If you know you're going to need a cab, it's a lot more convenient to just say, go on my app, my cab's going to be downstairs, I'm going to walk out and get in it, versus let me go to the next street over, and this is only in Manhattan, next street over, hail, wait for someone to come through and stop. Or again, the outer boroughs is where this really hits. If you're out in Brooklyn, you're out in Queens, you're Staten Island, the Bronx, wherever, it's the same thing. Uber, app, cab, done, versus wait, hope, wait, get a cab.
So the bill caps the number of ride-hailing vehicles on city streets, holds the issue of licenses for a number of services, and allows the city to set a minimum pay for drivers. New York is the first major city to implement such rules for ride-hailing companies. It's going to affect not only New York City, but the outer boroughs.
Right. That's where it's going to affect the outer boroughs more.
Heavily.
Yes.
Why? Because a lot of people in the outer boroughs, hey, they want to make a couple extra bucks.
Right.
Guess what? You become an Uber or a Lyft driver.
Right.
And you can say, if I can go to the app, punch in my information,
right. Yep.
and a car service is here quicker than the local car service in my neighborhood is there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think it's fair. Sure, this is kind of the old argument, newer technology taking over from older technology, so this is the new school way of getting a cab, getting a ride when you need one on demand versus the old school way of doing it, and it's going to put someone out of business. Is this just the way it happens? Do they need to really start looking at something, an alternative method of maybe like a, Uber NYC medallion? I mean, look at some other methods of doing things.
I'm sure. But we're going to start to see the backlash. And like I said, this lays the footprint for everywhere else.
Yep.
Hey, one last thing I wanted to talk about you about, and this would have been definitely an excellent topic for Dr. Michelle.
Hi, Dr. Michelle.
Hey, Dr. Michelle. CVS is rolling out the new virtual doctor visit service, which will be available 24/7 for $59 on this app. I didn't experience the CVS version of it, but I did a sample one a few months ago, where I got to run through and honorably mentioning it was a service that I did, and I was paid for. I was compensated for.
Fair enough.
Where I went on to the service, connected with a doctor online. I won't name the providers or anything else like that.
Okay.
Unless they want to cut us into the check. And went through the process, had a discussion with a doctor online without even leaving the home.
So, going through the experience, I mean, granted, so this was a test. This was not a legitimate issue.
It was not a legitimate issue.
But what was the issue you had to feign having? What was the condition?
I talked to them about heat exhaustion and my son having asthma.
Okay.
So my son doesn't have asthma.
Right.
And he wasn't experiencing heat exhaustion.
Okay.
So I went through the process. It worked.
Okay.
It was a quick service.
Right.
You are looking at a specific network of doctors.
Right.
Like you said, you're not sure who you're going to see. The bigger question is, with CVS, will they be issuing medication? Will they, or do you still have to go in to see your primary care physician? Because nowadays it's all about urgent care.
Right, and you need a prescription sometimes with urgent care. I mean, considering it is CVS, everything is an electronic prescription these days.
Right.
So, I mean, technically, sure, let's say the doctor comes to the conclusion that, all right, you said you have a sore throat and you have a fever and, this, that, and the other. All right, I think you need an antibiotic. They can write the prescription, put it in the computer, and you go pick it up.
Yeah, one-stop shop.
And one-stop shopping, that's it. They've got to be, really espousing that, no, if you're, life or death issues, no, don't get on the app.
Don't get on the app.
Call 911 or go to the hospital.
Rich, I think I'm having a heart attack. I think I'm going to pull up the
app. I'm going to pull up the app, right.
And talk with a doctor.
Right. So you'll pay another $50 to say, go to the hospital.
Right. Right.
Now, was there a little survey before speaking? And so I'm guessing this was video.
It was video.
So before you actually were connected to a care provider, was there a survey, a questionnaire you had to fill out, or how did that work?
So for me, there was not a survey. There was a survey since I was working more with the provider and the PR firm. It was kind of laid out
bypassed that
way.
piece. Okay, so they just wanted you to get the experience. But okay, I'd be interested to hear more about that.
Okay.